Well, if you haven't read the book yet, then join about 99.9% of all Americans. Yes, it's Omarosa's new book, Unhinged, about President Trump. I'm Scott Ott with Bill Whittle and Stephen Green. This episode of Right Angle brought to you by the members at BillWhittle.com, all of whom have not read Omarosa's new book yet. Gentlemen, it's...
We're going to talk about it anyway.
That's right. My old profession of journalism has just completely lost its grip. In between shooting our Backstage show this week and, during the time when we change our shirts, I realized what really bothers me about the coverage of this new book. Remember in the movie All the President's Men, or if you read the book All the President's Men, that Woodward and Bernstein seemed committed and driven to nail down every fact by getting somebody on the record or off the record to corroborate something. There had to be at least two sources of any bit of information. You would never think of just publishing something that one guy said, because there was no way to verify that. If you got two separate people to corroborate the same information, you could go to press with it. Now, it seems that not only is that not required of the news media, it's not required of the publishing industry. Bill Whittle, what is it about a book that makes it okay for journalists to just completely cast all restraint aside and say, well, it was in a book, therefore we can publish it?
Any idiot can publish a book, and I ought to know because I did it in 2005.
Right here.
But I actually take a different opinion on this than you, Scott. I would much rather have journalists be lazy and slack in a book and be on the job doing the news in newspapers and on TV. I mean, I always think of a book as a book is written by somebody, and there's an author, right? It's got written by, and this is the person who wrote it, and it's the lack of factual reporting that's just driving me nuts. I remember, during the Watergate investigation, which was the first time I ever really learned about my dad's politics. He wasn't too happy about it. But I remember them basically saying, look, if you're going to bring down the president of the United States, you better get it right. And those days are long gone. It's now just a question of how loud can you turn on the screeching. By the way, I haven't read the book yet, although I'd be willing to bet you that the sound of it read aloud on audiobooks is the sound that I heard 2 nights ago when the fire alarm went off at Ralph's supermarket. And after that thing rang for about 2 or 3 minutes, it's exceedingly loud, but the thing that I realized about it, I'm not joking about this, was that an enormous amount of research had to have gone into the fire alarm smoke detector sound to make the most annoying sound possible, just make something that is absolutely unbearable to listen to. I suspect the book will go that way. And by the way, didn't she go a little nuts when she got fired from that show?
Well, there were stories that she was... the show or the White House? Because there were stories that she was drag kicking and screaming from the White House.
Oh, that'd be awesome. So who's Unhinged? By the way, as I said in our pregame show, if this is going to be like news to anybody, I want to just have a picture of Barack Obama looking very statesmanlike, and a picture of Donald Trump with his hair blown back and his eyes real wide. And below Obama, I want to have hinged, and below Trump, I want to have unhinged, and below that, I want to have under Obama 1.1 economic growth, and I want under Trump, I want 4.3% economic growth. Pick your poison.
Well, and I think there's a certain degree, which a lot of people have come to, and me to a certain extent, that say, for whatever else you say about him, he's being effective in some ways that I find to be important. And the question is, at what point, if you overlook, let's say all of her accusations in the book are true, at what point do you get to the place where you go, it doesn't matter how good the economy is, this is unacceptable. Now, we have no established facts here in this book. And in fact, there's a lot of denial going on from the White House and from other people who are involved. Steve, as you may have read on page 149 of Omarosa's new book, she mentions that somebody who heard Frank Luntz, the pollster, say that he heard Donald Trump use the N-word. And Frank Luntz came out on Twitter this week and said he absolutely did not hear Donald Trump say the N-word.
Imagine that.
And so, anyway, so there's a lot of denials going on about this book. And I guess coming from a conservative perspective, and especially for those who support the president, Steve, don't we get into kind of a wrestling match of should we give any airtime at all to this woman?
Well, clearly the answer to that is yes, because here we are doing it.
Well, we're doing it, yeah. So I kind of defeated my own question, but the question is, am I getting sucked into her sticky trap?
Wow, there's a lot to unpack there. Let me start with this. With books like this, it's just like election campaigns, the way the media covers it. We never get really in-depth views of the important policy issues, or none of these jokers would get elected, and we'd have to get all new jokers. It's always the horse race. It's who's up, who's down, who drew the big crowd, whatever. With books like this, it's not the truth of the matter. It's not the veracity of what's being claimed. It's he said, she said, and the excitement generated by that. And nobody in the publishing world really gives a damn as long as they sell books. But there's an important lesson in here. And for all the respect I've come to give Trump on any number of really important issues, just like you have, Scott, there's one thing about his administration, before that his campaign, that always makes me just do, industrial grade face palms. And that is, and I'm not actually ascribing this motive to him. It seems to be what's going on. And that is, if he finds somebody that's good on one of his TV shows, he seems to think that they'll be good in his campaign or in the White House. And those are two entirely different skill sets. And it goes back to a theory of mine that everybody, before they get married, needs to date for a long time, months at least, somebody as crazy, as greedy, as graspy, as self-promoting as Omarosa is, to teach them exactly what kind of person not to marry in the future. I mean, we've known this since, I think it was season 1 or season 2 of The Apprentice. I watched the first couple of seasons of that show, and I was watching them with my wife, and seeing Omarosa and all of her just spectacularly bad behavior, all I could think of was how happy I was to be watching her on TV next to this woman instead of sitting next to Omarosa and watching my wife on TV.
And if anybody wants any tips on how to date 200 crazy women before you find somebody to get married, just drop me a line at info@BillWhittle.com, and I'd be happy to give you the step-by-step procedure.
I can fill in any blanks that Bill might leave, believe me.
Maybe that's my shortcoming, because I've always been satisfied to read about things like that and not have to live through them.
Oh no, I'm too stupid for that.
Genuine crazy, all the way crazy is a. It gave me shingles, is what it did.
Oh my goodness. Well, as some of you know already, I've been reading the biography written by Ron Chernow about Ulysses Grant, and I heard an analogy made to Ulysses Grant on the radio this week. Grant, for most people, was viewed as somebody who had just tremendous integrity, told the truth, even to his own hurt. And with a few exceptions where he had some binge drinking incidents that he tried to conceal from others, for the most part, as a general and as a president, he himself was unimpeachable when it came to character. However, he had a tendency to surround himself with people who would use him and had corrupt motives, and people who were trying to get involved in land schemes. And eventually, although I didn't get to the end of the book yet, so no spoilers in the comments section, but eventually I believe he kind of hooked up with people who cheated him out of money because he tended to be pliable and get duped easily. President Trump sold himself to us during the campaign as a shrewd businessman who knew how to find good people and put them in good positions. And he's certainly done that with a lot of positions. But I am struck by people, and I don't mean Peter Strzok from the FBI, who just lost his job this week. Yay. But anyway, I am struck by the fact that somebody like Omarosa can get one of the highest paid staff positions in the White House, a $179,000 a year position, apparently doing nothing other than running around with her iPhone recording private conversations, including in places like the Situation Room. And then, I don't know if you heard the excerpt of when she called President Trump and said, John Kelly just fired me, and Trump seemed flummoxed by that and didn't understand why it had happened, and he was saddened by it. How does a guy who's so smart become so dumb when it comes to surrounding himself with people like that? So not that I believe everything that she said in the book, but just there's enough that's not true in the book for me to believe that he blundered in that respect and he needs to really double down on listening to people like John Kelly, who will guide him wisely in choosing really loyal people. And by loyal, I mean loyal to the country, not just apparently loyal people to him personally. For Bill Whittle and Stephen Green, I'm Scott Ott. Thanks to the members at BillWhittle.com for making Right Angle possible.